Hey everyone, welcome to Fitness Aces, our weekly live stream show aimed at improving your tennis fitness and performance, regardless of whatever level you are or experience you are. We're going to be showing multiple exercises or drills in three different categories of injury prevention and activation, strength, and power. I'm Josh Rifkin, a master tennis performance specialist, as well as a tennis coach at the Austin Tennis Academy.
I'm Mike Kelly. I'm the lead strength and conditioning coach at Soto Tennis Academy in Soto Grande, Spain.
Hi, I'm Dio Miranda. I'm a corrective exercise kinesiologist and a strength specialist training both the mind and the body at the Austin Tennis Academy. Let's go to here I am, guys, and everyone doing some spinal mobilizations. Actually, before I do harder or more demanding things in the gym, or before I play any sport. Um, You'll be really surprised on the first one that I did with the arms out. I like how many people, athletes, kind of move their spine the proper way. All I want to do is just run and the spine and the vertebrae gliding over each other to cause some fluids in it. For the more advanced people, it's the synovial fluid that makes your joints and vertebrae glide really nice. So here, and also you can find out, as always, if you know me by now, always use your movement for assessments as well. So things that you might feel when you do certain things, just as this movement, it gives you information about some pain or something, some red flags or something that's bothering you as you perform these movements. One of the reasons I put on specifically now when I'm going with my arm going down my knee, it's just to tell myself, if I'm actually gaining range of motion when I do that, and it helps me. It's a cue just to help me see where I am, or if I'm doing less, if I'm doing more, if I feel comfortable when I'm close to the knees, and the hands on the head, just to bring variation to it. In this case, it's just adding weight to my head so I can actually move a little bit farther in this particular frontal plane. And something I use a lot. I can do it at the beginning of the workout, at the end of the workout. It's always a good idea to move your spine. So, like I said at the very beginning, you'll be surprised how many people cannot do this, but it's a really good tool for you to, again, get in touch with yourself. Put yourself in a position where it's like getting to know yourself even more. So guys, what do you think?
Awesome deal. Yeah, I think if I can jump in, I think leading from what we did last week with the Jefferson curl, where we're looking for that flexion and extension through the vertebrae, and then moving now into that frontal plane. So moving side to side and then getting those vertebrae moving in a slightly different way, but all movement prep for what we do in tennis. So in terms of the service motion, we're wanting that cartwheel type motion, so that movement through the vertebrae and through the spine. It's so important, and some very easy looking movements there, but like you say, not easy to do for some people. Some people get stuck in certain positions, the coordination of being able to do that. So I think with these drills, being able to do them, like you say, at the start of a session and just feel those movements and then be able to build them up. Obviously on court, it's a lot more chaotic. So in a lot more of a controlled environment before you go on to court, these movements are fantastic. I love them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool, Dio. Um, as Mike was just saying, that kind of side bending or that frontal plane motion, that motion in as human beings, but tennis players, we're going to get really restricted there, really tight. It's the least explored and the most prone plane of movement to have injury. So having that movement kind of increase and fluidity of movement is going to make a major difference on rotation, on your serve, on being able to be in positions without forcing. So really cool. I mean, the spine joints, they're supposed to rotate and go up and down, but most people neglect that kind of side bend
Uh,
movement. and something else to point out on this movement is if we watch Dio do that, we'll call it that spinal translation, or he's translating or moving his joints left and right, so they're sliding left and right on top of one another. His hips right now, his hips are locked. So he's really only moving from where that belly button is and through his spine there. So when most people try to do this for the first time, I'm guilty of this. I've seen many people do it. They're going to be moving their hips and lower body with it, either just because, like Mike said, lack of the coordination of doing the movement, or a combination of being very restricted and tight in those patterns. So working through, and maybe it's super small movements at first. That's the first start, and then you can gain ground and into those side bends and really opening up the body. I mean, that's going to help your serve. It's going to help rotation on all of your shots. So really, really cool.
You can do that. Thank you, guys. You can also do the same thing with the neck, and you play with it. But you guys brought it up in a way. But one of the most forgotten planes in fitness is actually the frontal plane. So to have an idea or to do things within that plane where we don't move that much, it's a good thing because you use it for the game. And every time, one of the reasons we train and we move is because when you go to the court, then your body only follows the commands of your brain. So you don't have to worry about these things because you've done it before. So same thing here. You expose yourself to the movement, and then you, on your workout, you can add some weight and do different things to work on that same plane. Then you're getting ready to go play some tennis, again, the basic little things that can make a huge a change on your program and on your game, just because you're exposing the brain to these different movements. And remember this, because it happens all the time in fitness. This plane right here moving this way is the most forgotten. So if you add some weights, you can add that to your program. It's just going to make you better. Just for the simple fact that, it's not a pretty movement. It's not in the media. It's not like, or it is, but nobody explain it. But, actually it's one of the places where people get most of their back pain, where they're carrying a loaf of bread in their trunk. The weight really doesn't matter, but because the brain haven't seen yourself making that movement, it doesn't have the right muscles firing on that movement. So this is what we're trying to do here, to give you ideas and to think a little bit how the body move, and then go from there and help yourself or some athletes that you might have. So
I think when you talk about day-to-day movements as well, like, yeah, it's such a big thing, but in terms of mobility and flexibility, the easiest positions for any athlete or any human being to execute are the ones that they are exposed to the most. So if you never do that lateral flexion, then when you're asked to do it on court, it's going to be so alien to you. So in terms of exploring this, even using this in front of a mirror or videoing yourself and then comparing it to what Dio's just done, you'll be able to see whether your hips move too much, whether you can fix the hips, where you're moving from, even doing it like shirtless, or for the girls in like a sports bra or something like that, you'll be able to see from the back how well that vertebrae and that spine moves. But like I said before, the easiest positions for our bodies to access are the ones that they're exposed to the majority of the time. As humans, that we're not designed to sit as much as we do, but we sit a lot. So our hip flexors are tight, which makes us very comfortable in that type of position. But we need to, this is going off topic slightly, but we need to be able to stretch the hip flexors for that to be an accessible position. And it's exactly the same for that lateral flexion, that movement of the spine in the frontal plane. If we do it before every session, that movement, when our tennis coaches ask us to go into that cartwheel type hip over hip movement in the serve, it's going to be a lot more accessible to you as an athlete, or if you need to suggest it to your players as a tennis coach or a fitness coach. Yeah. Awesome deal.
Oh, super cool.
this movement's going to help your tennis serve, like other things, like especially, but tennis serve, like for sure. I mean, Mike's saying that hip over hip, that shoulder plane has to be, we're not looking for a flat shoulder plane on the serve. So if I'm going back to show, we can zoom in here on the serve motion. If I'm going to go into this shoulder position here, and my shoulder plane is pointing back downward. Okay, if I'm here, I'm getting no lateral flexion if I'm tossing and serving like this. So exploring the side of our body and the connection to the hips up to the shoulder, that's going to help you get into what Mike said, that hip over hip and that shoulder plane line, and be able to be free. Maybe there's just restriction there. It's also going to help our left arm, or for a right-handed tennis player, our left arm get full and straight up into our tossing arm. This tossing arm shouldn't be bent, and we don't want it to prematurely collapse. So having that space open on the outside of our body, and as we've said many times today, that frontal plane, it's not much explored. So opening that up and playing with it, you're going to see freedom of movement in your serve open up, and you're going to help stiffness and help protect your body as well. Since, I mean, 70% plus of movement in tennis is lateral. So when you're stopping on your outside leg, you have that whole outside body kind of stiffening up to protect you from falling or losing posture. So really cool movement to mobilize the whole frontal plane, especially in the spine deal.
Yeah, that's awesome. Mike, to answer your question, I was going to do it without a shirt off, but I thought it was going to be too much distraction. All right, guys.
More viewers.
Next.
What I got for you. We are moving on to Mike and strengths, and thank you.
Hey guys, so sticking with the same type of theme, it's as if we planned this. We're sticking to a frontal plane movement. So a frontal plane movement is basically like our side to side movement. So anything where we would bend this way or travel to the side, and lateral raise, things like that. They're our frontal plane movements. And like Josh said a couple of minutes ago, 70% of the movements in tennis are lateral side-to-side movements. So if we neglect these movements, we put ourselves at risk of, or a high risk of injury. We also limit what we can do in terms of efficiency of performance as well. So the exercise that I've got is a lower body exercise. And I've started off where I would start any athlete off, with the lateral sit back. So we often see people doing lateral lunges. I want to start off with the lateral sit back, just because it's an easier movement to learn. And then when you feel comfortable and you know the position that you're trying to get into, the lateral lunge is a bit more dynamic. So we can then build on from this, and I can move back and show you the lateral lunge, but I want to talk about the lateral sit back a little bit first. As you can see, feet planted on the floor. We want to try and keep the toes pointed forward as much as we can. We're not trying to let the toes come out too much. They might come out a little bit. And the weight stays all the way through the foot. So we don't want to come off. A really common thing for people to do in this movement is start to travel forwards too much. So it's called a lateral sit back. So we're trying to sit back and down with the hip. A lot of people push too far forward, where the knee then goes too far over the toe and the heel comes off the floor. In this particular movement, we want to try and keep that heel down. Keep the chest up as well. We won't keep the chest vertical. If you're very mobile, you'll have more of a chance than me, but you're still trying to lift that chest up and keep a nice strong torso position and not just collapse forwards. If we just move back onto me for a second, I'll just show you a couple of examples. So what we sometimes see in this movement is as we step, or as we're in position and we slide, what we might see is that continuation of going to the side and we collapse here. we sometimes see this knee come out and this knee bend inside a little bit too much. So what we want is a strong inside leg. So this leg wants to remain straight all of the time and strong. As we slide over, we just want to keep this knee in line with the toe. We're not collapsing to the side here. Chest up nice and tall. As you can see, I'm not upright, but I'm sitting back and down into that position, and my foot is firmly on the floor. As I say it, the reason I do the lateral sit back is it's less dynamic. In terms of learning the movement, we can really slow that movement down. If 70% of our movements in tennis are side to side, that means our groins, our adductors, the inside of the thigh, and the outside of the thigh are going to take a lot of impact, a lot of strain. So with these lateral sit backs, we can really slow the movement down and try and build some strength and what we call hypertrophy, so like muscle building through that area to try and protect our knees, our hips, up into our lower back and shoulders, ankles, protect them from any types of injuries, particularly if you're playing on clay and you're sliding out wide. We need to be mobile in those positions. But if we're flexible and mobile without having strength, it's almost as bad as being immobile. So you want to be strong through those ranges that you have as well. So this is a great mobilization. This is a great flexibility, and this is a great strength building exercise. I just want to open it up to the boys before I talk a little more about it. But yeah, what do you think, boys?
I mean, that was an amazing presentation of that simple movement, but you can do again so many things to it, from adding weights to adding one piece of weight in the middle, to adding things on side of the body to and I'm glad you brought up because I was thinking about it, feet coming off the floor and all these things that again you can use your movement as an assessment with your athletes. And with the 70% thing that Josh brought up, moving side to side, and your adductors need to be in shape and be presented to the position itself. You talk about the form, not collapsing and doing different things. A reminder to coaches and students: you don't have to go as far as as you think you need to go. Doing things little first, and maybe adding some weight to increase flexibility in the right way is another thing to do when it comes to this. But I mean, amazing movement. I do it all the time. Again, kind of forgotten, right? For so many times we go into that plane, and how many people are not familiar with that feeling on the adductors. It's a great one. So thank you for bringing that up.
Nice.
Yeah. What else needs to be said? I mean, no, that's awesome. Frontal plane. I mean, we went from the mobilization from the spine frontal plane and now into the lower body strength frontal plane. I was hoping we would talk about this, and it's just reiterating the points of everyone's going to be at a little bit different place with this. Someone who might be hyper mobile or hyper flexible, they're going to be able. You'll see these people sit down on that outside leg like all the way and have that other leg long and straight. That doesn't have to be the outcome. For someone like that, I might say slow the movement down, not go as low, and get really strong in those loaded positions. And then someone who might be more restricted, who can't step out as far, that might be someone I say, okay, let's hold that position a little longer, or maybe add some assistance where I know I've used it. I've seen you use it, and Mike will take like a TRX or a suspension strap or a cable of a doorpost, and you can hold on to the doorpost and slowly control this motion as you're sitting down into it. So you're getting your brain exposed to this larger opening of the hips, the adductors, the inner thigh, and loading that back hip without feeling like I can't go down, I'm going to fall backwards. So that's a good way to kind of open up that. Or Dio, I think you just mentioned add a weight in front, and you can press that weight out in front, and that's going to help counterbalance. Meaning, I'm my arms out in front, and I'm going to be able to go lower than. Mike, I'm sorry you were going to show this, but if I'm stuck here and I can't sit back very far, I could take a weight in my hand, and when I press this weight out, it can counterbalance, so I won't feel like I'm falling back. I can push this out and then I can come back up. So we do a press out and a sit, and that's going to help get maybe a little bit lower into that position and feel more comfortable. But that's not a heavy weight. It's just like a counter tool, right? Like a teeter-totter type deal. But
yeah, you can rotate
even
more with that.
Oh yeah, dude. There's frontal plane, lower body strength. There's so many things we can do with that to make it extremely dynamic and then very much extremely controlled and stable.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's starting with those lateral sit backs to just feel that movement. I think if you start off with a dynamic version, so that lateral lunge, I think it can be quite easy to hide things. You hide mobility or strength issues because or the athlete just springs out of that position. So the difference between, I'll show. So the difference between getting into this position and then controlling that motion as I load to one side, maybe taking 3 to 5 seconds, and then coming back up, as opposed to getting to here and then springing up. I think the difference is huge between those things. Like the second version is absolutely a key exercise, but I think to be able to do that under control first shows us as the coach that you've got that control. So maybe doing 3 to 5 seconds on the way down, using it as you guys say, as a strength exercise, but a bit of a loaded stretch. 3 to 5 seconds on the way down, maybe 5 repetitions, 8 repetitions. You can do that on each side and do multiple sets of that, 3, 4 sets of that, and then try yourself with the dynamic lunge, so that lateral lunge where you're moving in and out, because you've got the range, you've got the control to be able to then, so you've earned your badge to progress, I suppose. So once you've got that as a movement, then you can build on and go from there. And there's, I think I say, there's so many other variations we can then add. You can go from a lateral lunge to like a medicine ball toss and make it a little bit more integrated and even more dynamic. But I think to start off with, nailing that technique, letting your coaches see how you move. I think Dio says it every week, and using any of the movements as a bit of a movement screen is a fantastic way to look at it. I would even go as far to say as get people or get your athletes to do it with their shoes off as well. I think we can hide a lot within a pair of shoes. I think using the feet on the floor and seeing if that ankle collapses, if the knee collapses, why it collapses, where we're putting weight onto the floor and things like that is basically where we want to start. It's a great starting place for any movements in that frontal plane.
Yeah. Mike, on fire, right on point, lowering the tempo of the movement for sure will make a difference. Almost everyone, many people do everything fast. We can do everything fast. When you lower the tempo of an exercise, it's like you see a whole different person going through it. Because the fibers are not exposed to it. So huge, and I'm glad you brought that up. Also brought up the no shoes. That's a big topic, but I love the no shoes because we came that way, and we intended to also use it as a screen assessment. To see how your foot actually move, your ankle mobility, and you get to see those things better with no shoes. Even though I know you play with shoes, but I don't want to get too much into that. Many people out there are probably waiting for shoes, no shoes. But anyway, so moving on. Go, Josh.
Wow, I have something to say. I never have anything to say. We've covered a lot with this movement, and as both the guys just said, is lowering that tempo, being mobile yet controlled. So mobile yet stable. So controlled movement. Can you get into this position? Can you hold this position? Are you strong in this position? I think it was Mike with your jumps, or when you talked about the counter jumps, we talked about how the speed hides weaknesses. And this is just another way of saying, Mike, you're saying doing the slow tempo. If you do fast right away in that dynamic lunge, you might miss a few things, right? an example would be using the speed of the movement to hide maybe a strength issue or maybe a flexibility issue. So being super strong and stable in those positions and really owning it. There's so many things I want to like share with this movement. I mean, so if you're, I would encourage everyone to get really, really good at this pattern. And if you go back into this side lunge or this sitting pattern, you can hold this pattern. And then as Mike said, when you get a little stronger, you can add some medicine ball work. But can you sit into this hip? Can you get in this good posture? And then from here, you can add band and core work. So you're strong and stable as you're holding this. You can add your pushing and pulling and rotational movements, but it all stems from that super strong base. As you move out to the side, you're going to be in those positions and then coming out of those positions. So being really strong and stable there first, and challenge your training with that sitting. Sorry, Mike, what did you call it?
The lateral sit back. Yeah, that's what we call it. Yeah.
So with that lateral sit back, can you go slow and own that position? And then can you put some other patterns while you're holding that position? Then you're probably ready to do more of the dynamic movements once you can be strong and stable in your posture as you're in that lateral sit back position. I mean, then it can get, you can have fun with it. You can go as crazy as you want. Step out into single leg balancing. So now there's a deceleration component where when you're loading into your shots, you can add momentum like into the med ball drills, as Mike said. There's so many cool things to do with this.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. A great topic. I think we'll pick that one up a little bit later again. Further down the line, we'll show some progressions on that and delve into it a little bit deeper as well. But shall we move on to Josh next?
The power. All right, so I wanted today for power, we've been doing a lot of upper body, we've been doing a lot of lower body, so rotator cuff, chest, pushing, legs, jumping. I wanted to show some rotational power, since tennis truly is that rotational sport integrated with rotation. So my body's not truly rotating, but what I'm doing here is a short period of time with a super light load, just a little couch pillow. You can use your hands pushed together, you can use a tennis ball, you can use your tennis racket, and I'm going in this oblique or this angle chop pattern from my right shoulder to my left hip. And I'm trying to keep my body stable. And I'm going to be driving my arms in that chopping axe pattern as fast as I can for a short period of time. I would suggest no more than 10 to 12 seconds for this power movement, or until you feel yourself slowing down. Because once you start slowing down your velocity, you're not training power anymore. This is going to be very good for your obliques, where they're running on that 45-degree angle across that same path that I'm chopping my pillow. And I asked them to mute this video because with every chop, I'm really making a loud exhale. So a loud exhale breathing is like when you exhale to hit all of your shots, it's going to keep your stability, your what's called your intra-abdominal pressure, or the pressure within your torso. You're going to be able to exert force on the shot, and you're going to be able to move a little bit more freely and release tension where needed. Really big movement. I mean, this is literally one rep. I would have someone do this amount, that amount of time on one side, and then switch to the other. Your heart rate's going to go up as well. Training obliques or rotational power is not only throwing a medicine ball, catching and throwing a medicine ball, and doing these aggressive rotational chopping movements. Are you training power and firing fast on that oblique angle or that hip to shoulder angle to connect the whole body? And that's like that frontal plane. I think that type of oblique training is forgotten a lot, and needs to be addressed as well. If you watch the video, I can just point out actually here, when I'm going into this pattern, I go half kneeling, and I kind of adjust my foot to get that good footing on the ground. And what I'm going to do is draw the belly in and kind of tuck my hips so my glutes are on and my core is on. That's creating a stable foundation that I want to move from. If I'm just kind of relaxed in my leg and relaxed in my trunk and I try to chop with power, I'm probably going to be wobbling and moving my leg and knee and ankle and all around, and that's what we want to avoid with this exercise. How stable can you be while fast twitch firing those obliques to get that true resiliency and rotational force there? Any thoughts, fellas?
Many,
Awesome.
many thoughts.
Can I jump in first?
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, I just wanted to just really quickly touch on what Josh was saying there in terms of that stability of the lower body. I think as soon as we look at that exercise, we look essentially what's happening the hips and above, but the work that's going in from the lower body in that type of exercise is so much as well. There's a saying that I heard years and years ago that you can't shoot a cannon from a canoe. And that makes so much sense in that type of movement. You know, there's no point in having all of this power in the upper body if that lower body isn't stable enough to be able to maintain that position when you're doing it, because then something's going to give and you're going to collapse. But that, so if we just see Josh's lower body, how strong and stable that is to be able to then create that power further up the chain, I think it's probably something that can quite easily be overlooked in a video like that, but is massively, massively important. Awesome, Josh.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dale.
No, don't.
I just want to get my saying in.
And you guys can accomplish this with strength, right? If you put a pyramid, strength, it's the foundation of being powerful. You know, if you are not strong, please don't attempt to do this. It's gonna be a mess. You're gonna train a different thing in your brain, as your brain always recording what you do, right? And then that brings faulty patterns. So work on your strength and stability, be strong and stable, and then go on for these things because they're required for you to go all out when you're training power. So don't do any training movements slow because that's no power. That might be a mobilization, but when it comes to these movements and you add a little bit of weight, go for all you got. Reminder: work on your strengths.
Yeah. Something I might start someone with, as Dio was saying, this is a power movement. I've really grounded my foot to the floor, as Mike said, that lower body stability. I'm not getting any excess rotation in my trunk because I'm not trying to on this movement. I'm not saying rotational movements are not needed for tennis, but in order to produce rotational forces with control and protecting your body, as Dio said, strength and stability, you've got to be able to control that movement first. So you don't want any unneeded rotation from your or curve or bending from your low back. It's not meant to do a whole lot of movement. So are you doing all this chopping patterns and the force is then throwing your low back into movement? That's a recipe for maybe some issues down the road, if not at that time. So somewhere to start with this movement, I'm teaching this pattern to work through oblique power. I might have someone in a tall kneeling, or even better yet, I'm going to have them tall kneeling with the knees wide and the toes together. I'm going to have them do a huge tuck of the hips. So it's like a dog is curling its tail underneath him. So my glutes are squeezing, my belly is in. So I'm in a tall kneeling position. I'm connected to the ground. I'm pretty stable as one unit. So if I'm rotating, I'm squeezing all here and here. So I'm rotating, but my lower body's not really rotating right now. I can then put my athlete in different positions of stretching those obliques and literally go into some of these movements or presses. Maybe it's a band. Maybe I'm hitting on that pillow to keep them super strong and stable. And then I might have them go through some slow patterns of this working into that half kneeling. As we get half kneeling, it becomes more of a single leg dominated movement. Maybe it's going to be tougher to get that tuck in the hips. So there's different ways to start with this pattern to feel your lower body, as Mike said, that stability so I can produce force in the upper body. I love what he said, Mike. Can't shoot a canoe. You can't shoot a canoe with a cannon. You can't shoot a cannon from a canoe. So that unstable, that canoe on the water is wobbling, and you're trying to shoot a cannon. You're going to be able to shoot it, but at what, right? So what's the target? What you're going to capsize your canoe with that kind of pattern. So it's a different look at rotational. Most people see a lot of med ball throws. That's not an issue. That's not wrong. It's just a different way to be stable and producing force along the core as it connects to the body, shoulder, and hip. When you have complete stability and control, then you can play with some more of those dynamic movements. Maybe you can even try this standing up first. You're in a lunge stance, you're in a squat stance, single leg stance. That would be progressing this movement for sure.
Yeah. And also
I think
a reminder or something else for the people out there. It's like, remember, when the load is closer to the body, the easier it is. So if you're gonna grab a piece of equipment, a small dumbbell or small medicine ball, keep it close to the body as you do the movement. And the farther from the midline of the body, the harder the movement it is. So keep that in mind, because how Josh is showing it here, he's like away from the body. You might be attempting to do that, and it's too hard for you. Maybe you're strong and stable, but you haven't practiced on that pattern yet. So you bring it close to the body, and you do the same movement, and then kind of like midway, and then like all the way out, and that changes not only the movement but your program. So something to bring up, because some people might, well, the guy did it like this, and that's not working for me. So, bringing the load back to the body is a good thing to start.
Good point, Gio.
I think what Josh had alluded to as well is in terms of that oblique power, like medicine balls are a great tool to use. But again, it's for me, it's earning the right to be able to use those tools. And it's not just, oh, we saw this person using medicine balls, so we need to use medicine balls. I think you earn the right to use a medicine ball. Like, even a medicine ball's quite advanced, just like a football, a soccer ball, is sometimes enough. And again, you don't need to release that, but being stable and strong in those positions. I think too often people would go to medicine balls too quickly, and then in terms of, right, we need to develop this type of power, but instead of being able to withstand the forces of that ball. So even when you move onto medicine balls, before you even throw it, being able to catch it and be strong in those positions is a bit of a prerequisite to actually throwing a medicine ball. And I think those drills, just the ability to pick up a pillow. So Josh was kneeling on the floor with a pillow in his hand, and generating so much force and so much power. But like we said, medicine balls are good, but they're not, you don't have to use that type of thing. There are so many other things that you can use, and using them with quality and strength and stability is where we want to be. Yeah, we don't want to skip levels. We want to go each level as we progress gradually and gradually and gradually. Awesome, Josh.
Yeah, thanks, man. And reiterating the force produced to train power. Power is about the velocity in which you can move said object, or how much velocity you can push through. It's not how much weight you are able to move through. Okay, so that's why this movement is so fast. If I filmed for much longer, I'm slowing down. I'm no longer increasing velocity. I'm now not training power anymore. I mean, it's like 3% of your body weight, some super light load. I mean, the pillow is pretty heavy for this actual type of movement to go for 10 seconds. So using a tennis racket and being controlled in those end positions, massively important. And I think gyms are now starting to open up, and people might have some stuff at home to play with, but I would encourage everyone to play around with simply this tall kneeling position, wide knees, toes together. So our hips are kind of turned out a little bit, and then you can tuck and squeeze the glutes and belly in and get really stable, and see what that feels like and how stable you are connected to the ground. Then you can maybe take a band or something here, and I would encourage everyone to try to get in the up position and see how hard it is to just hold a light resistance here while maintaining all of that, not collapsing, or what it's like with a half kneeling position being connected to the ground, and are you bringing something down over and you're holding that end position of those obliques stretching or contracting, and just hold that position and realize how tricky that really is to be super connected and stable, and then build that pattern as you start to add some more movement and force to it.
Yeah, and also reminding people, if your knees hurt when you do this, then you can also put a towel or a pad, some kind of padding in there, because it's going to happen where, people go, my knees hurt, what do I do? Put something there that doesn't play any role in the movement, but make sure you're stable again.
Awesome.
Awesome, Josh.
Any other thoughts, guys?
Great movement. No, I'm good.
All right. Well, that concludes the power section. So that then concludes our show. Thanks, guys, for watching and tuning in. You can check us every week, Fitness Aces. If you are not able to view this live, or if you're viewing live or missed other sessions, you can view it at YouTube, Fitness 2020 channel, Soto Tennis Academy Facebook page, and Austin Tennis Academy Facebook page. And you can go back to all the other episodes. But that concludes our show this week. We'll see everyone soon.
Awesome, guys. Thank you.